because I was just thrown into the fire, literally, because my boss had got promoted. So then I had got promoted. And I was so busy trying to learn and kind of grasp this concept of managing a team of almost 20 people that it didn't dawn on me. Shaquanna, go into the system and, look at salaries. It wasn't until that following year when we were doing the whole bonus thing and my manager gave me the numbers of how much everyone's bonus was going to be. And I knew that it was based off a certain percentage of their salary. And so he's running off the numbers and I was like, wait a minute. He did wait. And so that's when I was like, yeah, something needs to change. It had been a little over a year that I have been in this role and y'all never thought y'all should have changed, like switch up, whatever. Yeah. So I used my voice. I was so proud of myself because when I was younger, I didn't use my voice, but I used my voice and I said, this needs to change. This is the salary amount. I told him because he asked, he told me how much you want to get paid. And it was way over what I thought, but I was like, no, I know what I'm worth. And it took months of approval, all the protocols and they weren't moving fast enough. And I'm like, but if there's anything else, like I literally watched them move fast enough for another guy. But y'all weren't moving fast for me. And so that just really, that spoke volumes to me. And that was, I do honestly know that God made that happen to put some fire under me because I got comfortable. I was really comfortable. My job was kind of steady, smooth sailing. I was making money in my business. I'm like, okay, I'm good. But he's like, no, I need you to be fully available to do what I need you to do. So yeah, that's how it happened. No bad blood. It's not like I hate anyone or anything, but I had to I had to make money moves. I had to make moves.
Yeah, I mean, and this is completely, unplanned. I didn't even know this about you, but this is such a unique conversation, just this point that people don't really see, especially when you haven't reached the ranks of management and leadership, that like the company, they're just putting people in, putting different pieces of the puzzle together, and nobody is behind the scenes checking where does everyone's salary align, not even to their own manager. And so when there's this whole conversation about, pay equity and this and that, it's like the idea is cute and sexy, but the reality is that is no one's job. There's nobody at the company checking, making sure everything is aligned. I mean, making sure it even makes sense. And so it's really up to you. Like this drives the point that like, if you're not watching your own bottom line, if you don't know what salaries are even reasonable for what you're doing, you can almost expect to be being underpaid, right?
Exactly.
Just expect it. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Smart Career and Money Moves podcast. Today, I'm super excited. We have Miss Shaquanna Chappelle. She is an image and style expert. And a fun fact about me, about 10 years ago, I wanted to be a stylist. I was going to quit my job, no money, no nothing. I was moving to New York to be a stylist, okay? So I am super excited that I'm chatting with somebody who did the thing. She did the thing. She's become a full-time entrepreneur. She's published a book, and she's on a mission to help women step into their confidence and make their best impression all through their wardrobe, their image. And she's going to talk to us today about how all of these things play into your career and your brand. I am so excited. Welcome to the show, Ms. Shaquanna.
Yeah, thank you, Gerrie. I'm so excited to be here.
Awesome. There's so much to unpack. I really want to dive in, but I want to start with some of your background and your journey, so people can understand, how you really made this transition, how you got to where you are. And you have an interesting start, right? You studied IT.
Yeah.
And exactly. IT project management. And like, you could have taken that in a million different directions. How did you decide like what your lane was going to be, what direction to choose after your education?
Yeah. I think as far as like my education, what I went to school for, and the field that I got into, I always loved computers. I'm very tech savvy, and I grew up during the AOL days and like MySpace days. So I was like, oh, I could do this as a career. And so I went ahead and majored in IT. I also had my parents in my ear saying,
Mm-hmm.
major in something that makes a lot of money. And so that's kind of how I chose that path. And after I graduated in the middle of the recession. So I graduated in 2009 from my college, and it was hard getting a job. I had went ahead and got like a little temporary job at the tax department in my state, just to, have money. But I was still interviewing, got a call for a role in Austin, Texas, to start my IT career, and it literally has taken off since then. So that's how I got into the IT tech role. And then, yeah, you're right. I went to school for project management, and I had a lot of success with the IT role. But as I evolved as a person and as a woman, I realized that I didn't want to wait until I retired or wait until I got to a certain point in my IT career to really do what fulfilled me. And so that's when I started my business, started really having tough conversations with myself to say, Shaquanna, what do you really want your life to look like? And then I started making moves to do my business full time. So that's kind of how I got into it. It was more so a thing of, hey, I like computers, I like business, I like, that whole thing. And also get into a field that makes a lot of money, Shaquanna. And so that's how I got into it. But I later found out, I was like, okay, that was a good chapter, but I'm ready for the next chapter.
How long was that chapter? Like, how long was that chapter? And what was the pivotal moment that made you decide that this is not it for me? I got to do something else.
Yeah, so that chapter was 11 years, or
Mm.
about 11 and a half years, in my IT career, and it spanned across multiple roles, which is why I love you and your content, Gerrie, because I'm like, I get it. I know. I know all about the STEM and just getting jobs and that. But yeah, so that chapter was 11 years. And the pivotal moment, I'll tell you, the pivotal moment actually happened 2 years into my IT career
Mm.
when I got laid off for the first time. And that was my first eye-opening moment when I was just like, oh, wait. Like, because in my mind, I thought I had checked off all the boxes. I went to a good college, got a good job. At that time, I had got married. We built a house. Like, I was doing everything that society considers successful.
Right.
And then I lost my job. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, wait a minute. And so I dealt with a lot of feelings and emotions with that. But that was the moment that I sat down with myself and sat down with God. I said, what am I supposed to be doing? Because I'm not about this life. Like, y'all not gonna work me to death and then be like, you're a line item on a spreadsheet that says you have to go. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm too good for that. It's kind of like my attitude with it. And so I knew from then that I was like, I knew I wasn't going to work corporate for like 30, however many years people are working now until they retire. And so I started doing things. I started my nonprofit organization. And then I shifted into my styling business officially in 2017. I've always been like the stylish person in my friend group or whatever that they come to and ask
Mm-hmm.
questions and stuff. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to make this into a business. I'm going to monetize it. And that's when I started it. And then I took, the time to build it. And then the pandemic came, and that's when I got promoted to management, right? And it was really hard. Literally got promoted right before like the world shut down. And so we're all working from home, but all trying to figure out what's going on. And so that was a really hard moment because I never wanted to be in management. I don't like the exposure in that particular area. Like, I love it for my business, but not for that. I'm just here to collect my check and I'm going home. Like, that's all I was like thinking about. Because, I was building something on the side. But anyways, I got into management. I'm grateful for that experience because it's definitely helping me now in my business. But the pivotal moment was one, I felt extremely depressed and I had a lot of anxiety centered around my job. I felt very unfulfilled. The pandemic obviously sat a lot of people down to reevaluate their lives, and that's what it did for
Mm-hmm.
me. And also at the very last minute, actually April of 2021, I ran into some salary issues where I was not getting paid what I knew I was worth. There were people on my team that report to me that were getting paid more than me, and
Mm-hmm.
there wasn't a swift enough resolution for that. And I said, oh, okay. Y'all don't value me the way that y'all say y'all do. And that's when I kind of knew it was time for me to really put that exit strategy in place. I had it, but I wasn't really working towards it. But thankfully, by November of that same year is when I was able to leave and do my business full time.
Wow. Wait a minute. We got to rewind it back. Okay. So, and I have never shared this, but I have been in that same situation as a manager, right? As a manager, and maybe you inherit some team members and you get to look and you get to go into Oracle and Workday and you see that like, wait, they making either the same thing I'm making or slightly below.
Right.
It has, I've been able to use it. Like it's worked for me, but I can talk to me about that. Like they were not willing to work with you.
It was a thing, and honestly, well, first of all, thank you for telling me that because I was like, is anyone else experiencing this? And of course, at that time, I did reach out to like other mentors and stuff. They're like, oh no, Shaquanna, that's not right, or whatever. So thank you for sharing that. But I don't know why or how. I think because I was just thrown into the fire, literally, because my boss had got promoted. So then I had got promoted. And I was so busy trying to learn and kind of grasp this concept of managing a team of almost 20 people that it didn't dawn on me. Shaquanna, go into the system and, look at salaries. It wasn't until that following year when we were doing the whole bonus thing. And my manager gave me the numbers of how much everyone's bonus was going to be. And I knew that it was based off a certain percentage of their salary. And so he's running off the numbers and I was like, wait a minute. He can wait. And so that's when I was like, yeah, something needs to change. It had been a little over a year that I have been in this role and y'all never thought y'all should have changed, like switch up the whatever. Yeah. So I used my voice. I was so proud of myself because when I was younger, I didn't use my voice, but I used my voice and I said, this needs to change. This is the salary amount. I told him because he asked. I told him how much you want to get paid, and it was way over what I thought. But I was like, no, I know what I'm worth. And it took months of approval. All the protocols, and they weren't moving fast enough. And I'm like, but if there's anything else, like I literally watched them move fast enough for another guy. But y'all weren't moving fast for me, and so that just really. That spoke volumes to me. And that was, I do honestly know that God made that happen to put some fire under me because I got comfortable. I was really comfortable. My job was kind of steady, smooth sailing. I was making money in my business. I'm like, okay, I'm good. But he's like, no, I need you to be fully available to do what I need you to do. So yeah, that's how it happened. No bad blood. It's not like I hate anyone or anything, but I had to, I had to make money moves. I had to make moves.
Yeah, I mean, and this is completely, unplanned. I didn't even know this about you, but this is such a unique conversation, just this point that people don't really see, especially when you haven't reached the ranks of management and leadership, that like the company, they're just putting people in, putting different pieces of the puzzle together, and nobody is behind the scenes checking where does everyone's salary align, not even to their own manager. And so when there's this whole conversation about pay equity and this and that, it's like the idea is cute and sexy, but the reality is that is no one's job. There's nobody at the company checking, making sure everything is aligned. I mean, making sure it even makes sense. And so it's really up to you. Like this drives the point that like, if you're not watching your own bottom line, if you don't know what salaries are even reasonable for what you're doing, you can almost expect to be being underpaid, right?
Exactly. And it wasn't until my exit interview where, and I had knew the guy who was doing it from HR, a Black guy, a really cool guy. And when I told him, I was very honest with him and I told him what happened, he was like, wow, we should have caught that. So that was an eye-opening for him, and hopefully they made changes within their department to say, we need to start watching these salaries if y'all going to be doing all these moving and shaking in roles. But yeah, that was the thing. No one caught it. So that was what it was.
So we took lemons, we turned it into lemonade.
Yes,
right.
We did.
So how did we choose the niche that like, how did you pull the pieces together that like, I'm doing my fashion thing, I'm doing my styling thing, they're not paying me enough, right? You see the writing on the wall that like, if I want to control my financial future, and maybe I'll let you answer that. Was it about controlling your financial future, or was it really about being fulfilled in doing styling?
It was about being fulfilled. I'll be honest, even though I don't want to say I don't want to say I was trained. I was taught to go after the jobs with the most money, because, my parents' generation was very much so about do what you got to do to survive. So that's why they were like, get the good job with the money. You need that, blah, blah. But I'm not motivated by money. I'm not.
Okay.
I need money. I know it affords me nice things. It affords me freedom. So I am about my money, but that is not what drives me to show up every day. I am motivated by fulfillment, by purpose, by peace. And also I like time freedom. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
motivated by that. And so when I got into doing my business, of course, as you know, it takes time to like build, and also you may have to like pivot and tweak things to find out who exactly you're supposed to be working with. But during that time, like the pandemic and all of that, that's when I really saw the most profit in my business. And that's when I was like, oh, wow, I can do this. I can do it. And I'm very big on my faith. I love God. He's the forefront of my life. And so I'm really big on obeying him. And so when he told me to leave, it didn't look good. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Mm-hmm.
yes, I had some savings. Yes, I was making money in my business, but I really had to obey him and trust that he's not going to let me fail. So that's kind of how it happened. And literally in business, it's up and downs and everything, but I have been good. I have been blessed. And that's what motivates me. So I don't, money is important, but at the end of the day, if I'm making an impact on someone's life in a
Mm-hmm.
positive way, that's what matters to me the most.
Love that. That kind of makes me want to ask. My next question is: you talked about impact. Let's talk about how you're impacting these professional women. Like, how
Yes.
did you decide? That the professional women need me.
Girl, all my years and experience in corporate America,
Okay.
you know, it kind of naturally happened. I'll say this: when I got into styling, I was like, I'm just styling women who want to feel confident, right? And I started getting some clients, but I noticed that all of my clients were working women. They had their 9 to 5. They wanted to climb the ladder,
Mm,
and or they had a side hustle, or they were full time entrepreneurs. And so I quickly figured out that my experiences when granted, I may have not publicly exposed it at that time, but I found that I'm attracting who I am, honestly.
hmm
I'm attracting the woman who got promoted and now needs to show up differently because she's the only Black woman in the room. That was me. I'm now working with the woman who, yeah, she's working, but she's building her brand on the side and she needs to do speaking engagements stuff. That was me. You know what I'm saying? So that's how I got into it. But it's funny because as soon as I got close to leaving corporate, and definitely when I did leave corporate, I kind of developed a newfound passion for Black women in their career in that entry to mid level
mm,
space, as far as like a mentoring. As far as who I work with, it's transition now. I work with CEOs, VPs, directors, which I love because I'm obsessed with their success. But as far as like mentoring, there's a soft spot in my heart for the younger Shaquanna, the
mm.
Shaquanna that was struggling with confidence, the Shaquanna that was struggling to use her voice as the only Black woman in a white male dominated field, and navigating that, and how to really navigate it in a way that it fulfills you in your personal life as well. So I'm starting to get into a little bit of that, I noticed, but yeah.
I mean, I talk a lot about building your brand, right? Like my
Hmm.
whole career coaching niche is on helping people build their brand, but I don't really speak on, the image side of it.
Yes.
So teach us, what's the secret to like finding that cross, the magic of how your
Mhm.
image plays into while you're building that brand in corporate America or as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, it's all about one, understanding how you want to be perceived. There's also a huge part of that too, where you as a person, you have to really kind of hone into what drives you, what makes you feel the most confident, um, your self-worth, your self-value, that plays a lot, as you know, into your career and everything like that. But at the end of the day, how do you want to be perceived? How do you want to be remembered? How do you want people to talk about you behind closed doors, right? Do you want
Mm-hmm.
them to say, oh, she's extremely confident, I trust her, I like her? Or do you want them to say the opposite? And so where I come in when it comes to your image, my message, while I am a stylist, while I do love fashion and all of that, it's deeper than that. It's what is going to help you show up with that confidence, that power that you do have, and in turn see the results of that, whether the results are promotions, building a personal brand outside of work where you're able to speak at conferences, whether that's just in general building your network. Like, all of that has a lot to do with your personal brand and building that brand at your workplace or in your career. But as humans, we are very visual people, and I know a lot of people say don't judge a book by its cover. Yes, we've all learned that when we were little young kids. But the reality of that, when you get into these workspaces and you get into the real world, as humans, we are programmed to start forming an opinion about someone as soon as we see them within the first few seconds. And so how you show up, the outfit you're wearing, how you have your hair done, your natural presence, are you slumped down? Or are you walking with confidence? All of that matters. And the impression that you make, like, it's very hard to turn around a negative impression. So you always want to make sure you give a great first impression, because that's how you meet people, build your network. And definitely within my corporate career, some jobs I got was solely based off of, oh, I saw Shaquanna present at that, meeting. Yeah, let's go ahead and interview her. Let's go ahead and give her the job. So it's just building your network and those connections that's going to help you in your career. And I know firsthand how your style can serve as like a competitive advantage, because not
Yeah.
everyone does that, and especially as Black women. So that's kind of how they go hand in hand together. So I use my message. My message is really based on confidence. You need that confidence, and if we need to put you in a cute outfit to make it happen, I got
Right.
you.
So it's really that icing on the cake. And I kind of love
Mm-hmm.
it. It's like the icing on cake. It's like once you've realized that you're valuable at work, you know your
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
stuff. Um, now you just need to command the room. You just need to,
Yes.
and to get this, it's almost like a lead magnet, right? It's
Yeah.
almost
Yeah.
like, it's like a lead magnet. Like what's underneath is already good, but we need to
Yeah.
get your attention somehow um, to do that. But you said something very interesting, that your business took off during the pandemic when nobody was leaving the
Yeah.
house. So
Yeah.
talk to me about, was it the Zoom thing or
It's
what?
that that is very still mind blowing to me, because what happened was at the beginning of 2020, I had went to this women entrepreneurship conference, got a lot of great clarity and tools I needed to really turn a really good profit in my business. Then I got promoted to management, and then the world shut down. So immediately I'm like, all right, well, I mean, I guess I'll just work, because even at that time, I
Mm,
think people were starting to question, like, am I going to get laid off? You know how the world was during
right.
that time. So I was like, well, let me just be heads down, focus on what I got to do. But because I had invested in this conference and a program right after it, I was like, oh no, let me work on I still need to put my message out there and be valuable. So I started posting about my message during that time was all about, okay, I know you're at home. I know that you are just showing up in your leggings and your sweatshirt and your hair not combed. No, just because we're at home doesn't mean that you can slack on how you feel when you show up for work. Just because we're all on Zoom now or on, doing virtual working does not mean that you don't need to show up in a way that makes a good impression, because people are still watching you. They're still
Mm-hmm.
watching you, especially at that time. They're watching to see how you handle the circumstances, right? And so I started putting, more content out about that. And then also too, I was like, oh man, people, maybe they're holding on to their money. They ain't really trying to invest. No, I had a lot of professional women who were like, well, shoot, I'm at home. I'm bored. I want to purge my closet, or I want someone
Mm,
to help me with my style. Because then it was like, I don't know what time, I don't know when we're going to be able to like go outside again. But when we go outside, I want to make sure I'm looking good. So it was very interesting how I was getting clients and getting a lot of leads and things, because people were like, well, this is a perfect time to work on those things that I didn't have time to work on beforehand.
Interesting. That makes total
Mm-hmm.
sense. We were sitting around
Mm-hmm.
with freedom of time,
Exactly.
supposedly. So people were looking at their wardrobes and trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
And so, uh, what amount of your clients would you say are, professional women versus entrepreneurs? And then, kind of, what are some staple pieces? Like we talk about
Mm-hmm.
Black women and confidence, and
Mm-hmm.
give me 3 pieces that are going to make me feel confident, even whether I'm at home or in office.
Yes, yes. So, as far as the ratio of professionals to entrepreneurs, it's probably at this point maybe about 70% professional women
Oh,
and 30% entrepreneurs. Mind you, there is some overlap because a lot of us are doing business on the side. So, I get a lot more corporate women who want that professional everyday wardrobe. As far as the staple pieces, yes, I love talking about that. So, top 3 pieces. I'm a blazer girl. I
mhm.
love blazers. And I think that they are the easiest way to feel put together, the quickest as well. Like I remember during
Hmm.
the time that I was working my corporate job and we were working from home, I had to do this really big presentation and I was not feeling good about. I went in my closet and put on the blazer to do the presentation right here from my office, my home office, and nailed it, right? So it's like little things like that. Having a nice blazer, I do recommend in neutral colors. And if you like to wear colors, in which I recommend wearing some colors, get you one in a nice like power color. I love yellow. I love red.
Mm.
Though colors matter. Colors definitely give you a boost that you need. So definitely a blazer. I want to make sure you have like a nice blouse, whether that's a button up or some type of blouse that can be worn under a blazer, but maybe worn by itself, can be worn under a cardigan. Again, it's all about being put together or feeling put together. And then I would also invest in, so I'm gonna give you 4 things, but
Okay.
I would also invest in a good quality pair of trousers, pants, whatever style you prefer. Neutral color, and then you can also do some pops of color as well. And then also too, investing in some jewelry. And it doesn't have to necessarily be expensive, but jewelry is the easiest, quickest, low cost way to spruce up an outfit. You can wear an all black outfit and throw on like a necklace like the one I'm wearing,
Hmm.
and immediately you're like making a statement. So, and that goes for both virtual, because when I was working from home for virtual during that time too, I had like nice little earrings I would throw on, or a nice necklace or something like that over my t-shirts. You know what I'm saying? So having those in your wardrobe and being able to mix and match them with different things is key.
Love that. Love that. So I kind of want to move into a question about, you talked about some of your struggles, right? Like how are we?
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk about how we can motivate and leave some kind words for people. One of your struggles you mentioned was career depression and anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what do you say to someone who's struggling with that? How do they find the courage to claw their way out, via, maybe it's via their wardrobe, for them it might be something else, but where's that courage? What's that word that you have for them?
First, I would say that everything is going to be okay. Everything is going to work out exactly how it's supposed to. Nothing that you're experiencing now is going to be wasted. Um, because, and specifically, I think I'm kind of leaning more into the anxiety route. We get
Okay.
anxious a lot because we're like, what's happening? What's going to happen? Am I doing this? Am I doing that? Everything is okay. Everything is working in harmony. That's what my
Hmm.
therapist always tells me. So that's one thing I would say. The second thing I would say is lean on whatever is bigger than you spiritually, right? So
Mm.
whether that's God or whoever you believe in, lean on that, because usually I know for me, if I'm having a depressed state or I'm having a lot of anxiety, I need something bigger than me. At that point, I cannot do it on my own. Lean on that source of your strength and of your wisdom, and really center yourself. Doing journal meditation with prayer, worship, whatever you need to do, because you need to ground yourself so that you are opening yourself enough to receive the wisdom, the discernment, decision making that you need to make, and trusting that, trusting your intuition, right? That's God speaking to you. Trust that. And then I'm gonna say, get up and get dressed. That's what my book is about.
Okay.
That's what my platform is. I share a lot in my book about how I went through certain things, certain situations in my life, and when I say get up and get dressed, yes, literally look nice, because that does help. But get dressed in your power. Get dressed like you're valuable, like, because you are that. It's just a matter of you recognizing that again. So if that means you need to throw on a lipstick, if that means you need to put on a nice blouse, even though you're staying at home all day, whatever that means for you, do it. And as you continue to do it over and over again, you will come out of that dark hole and you'll be like, okay, I got this. Whatever that thing is, like, I can get through my career. I can make decisions. Maybe I need to find a new job. Maybe I need to really focus on that business. Whatever it means for you, make sure it aligns with the vision that God has for your life, the vision that you have for your life, and everything will be okay.
When did you decide to write a book? Is the book more so about your story, or is it more so fashion styling tips?
It's about my story. And that book,
Okay.
I wrote that in the pandemic too. I was
Okay.
busy in the pandemic. I was so busy. Yeah, it was about my story. I didn't want to write the book. I didn't, but God told me you need to put this out there. And so it is about my journey to confidence, to self-love. I talk about my heartbreak story and how I just really felt about that. So it takes the reader through my journey, but in each chapter I provide the tools, the techniques to help get over that. Each chapter has a reflection as well, because I really want people to take action and start really answering those hard questions for themselves. So that's what made me write the book. And then also too, I encounter a lot of women who, yeah, they want to feel nice, they want to look cute in their outfits, but inside they are struggling. They are really just beating themselves up every day. They're not confident. They don't love themselves. And so a lot of times I get women who will buy the book and read the book, and that's like their first step to realizing, oh, you know what? I'm worthy of looking nice. I'm worthy of looking good and feeling good. And then, sometimes they become my client. So it's kind of, I always say that my book is like that first step to really feeling good about yourself enough to say, I'm worthy. I'm worthy of all the nice things, so that's why I wrote it.
So it sounds like, I'm just kind of recapping your journey. Very similar to myself. You realize 2 years into your career that, like, this isn't it.
Right.
And I always tell people, by the third year of doing anything, it's like a sink or swim thought. Like, either I'm going to really I'll go all in on this topic, or I'm out.
Right.
And so you decided that, like, this isn't it, but I'm going to, go down my fashion path. Like, when did you realize, though? Because so now we're, 10 years later, 11 years later. When did you realize that you had made the smart career and money move for yourself? Like, when decision. Go ahead.
The decision to go full time?
Yeah, that, like, this is the move for me, and, like, now I'm confident that I made the right choice.
Oh. I don't think that confidence came until after I left. I will say about, I'm trying to think, because a couple of months, so I gave my notice in September. I'm going to say after I gave my notice, to be honest. It took a while for me to build up to submit my resignation. And the way I submitted was I wrote the letter, but I had scheduled a meeting with my manager. And I recorded myself doing, I still had the video today. My voice was cracking. I was so nervous and so scared. Yeah, I was. So even up to that point, I wasn't 100% confident, but I knew I had to make this move. I didn't know what was on the other side, but I knew I had to try to do it. Also around that time is when I was just like, Shaquanna, what's the worst that can happen? I was like, give yourself 6 months. If you broke and nothing works out, go back and get another job. Thank God I have the education, the experience, the receipts. I can go back and get a job, Right. So that was my mindset, and that's how it shifted. It's like, what's the worst that can happen? And then it wasn't until I submitted my notice that I was like, oh, I got this. It's go time. Let's go. I'm ready for November to come so I can peace out. I had a vacation planned, everything. So, and then the first day of full-time entrepreneurship, I was like, what did I just do? But that quickly, I got over that. And it's just been a lot. It's been a confidence journey again with full-time entrepreneurship. Because I'm like, all right, today I'm not feeling confident, but I'm gonna keep going. And the next day it's like, oh, I got this. I'm in my bag, you know? So
Mm-hmm.
there's always a journey. You know, I always say confidence is a journey. It's not a destination. And as we continue to evolve and grow, we're going to hit those bumps where we're like, oh my gosh, I don't feel confident. But sometimes you just have to move. You just have to take action, and your confidence will come immediately after you take that move, you know?
Yeah, I always say doing is sexy, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Doing is sexy, right? If you don't feel confident, it's because you're not doing anything. Go do
Exactly.
something. Go do something. So, did you have a quit number? Like, how did you map out that, like, I'm gonna quit in 3 months? Like, I'm gonna give notice. I'm gonna quit. Did you have a quit number? Because there's two schools of thoughts. There's schools that people say, oh, just quit, you'll figure it out, land on your feet. But I know that you have an IT background, so there was some sort of strategic thought going on there.
Calculated, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm glad you know that. So when I dealt with, okay, so the beginning of 2021, I knew actually someone prophesied over my life and said, you will not be in your full time job by December 31st, 2021. And at that moment, and that was January 2021, I was like, girl, you tripping, like, whatever. But when that salary issue came, it was April that I wrote the resignation and I dated it for August 30th. I said, by August 30th, I am going to submit this resignation letter. I can't remember exactly what happened. I think my manager was out. There was something, and there was some self doubt that kicked in towards the end of August. Um, but then September came, and I was like, I need to just go ahead and do it. My husband
Mm-hmm.
came. My husband came home because, of course, he's in the know. Men, they need like a business plan. They need to see the numbers. They need to see it make sense.
Right.
But he came home one day. He was like, just quit. And I was like, oh, you ain't got to tell me twice. And so that's what I went ahead and did it. So I didn't have, I did have a number. I said by August 30th, I'm going to be out. I submitted it a couple of weeks later than that. But I slowly throughout 2021 believed, okay, by December 31st, I'm not going to be in corporate anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And it happened. So I knew I wasn't going to be the person that was just going to quit unless something crazy happened. I knew I wasn't just going to be the quit and figure it out. I needed to make sense. But also, I needed to fully surrender to God in the situation because I know that He can handle anything. So that's
Mm-hmm.
how kind of like my mindset. And then, of course, what's the worst that can happen? That was my
Right.
mindset.
How did your parents feel? And not how did your parents feel, but I'm just thinking, like, as someone who's in a successful career, you're in a highly profitable industry. I know you had people left and right telling you, girl, what are you doing? You cannot leave that career. How did you handle that? How did you push through?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So I prepped my parents years in advance.
Oh,
When
wow.
I
Okay.
got that, yeah, because I knew, and my dad, he's military. My stepmother, my biological mom passed when I was 8 years old. I have a stepmother who stepped in and literally loved her to death. So she's, considered my mom, and she's
Hmm.
very calculated. She worked for the government as well. So it was crazy. But I told them after I got laid off in 2014, I said, I want y'all to know that I'm not going to be in corporate forever.
Hmm.
They go off or whatever. I was like, I'm not going to do it. And every single time I did something, whether that's starting my nonprofit, doing an event for my nonprofit, starting my styling business, I again said, yeah, I'm going to leave my job and do this full time. So I prepped them. And when I left corporate, I did not tell them. I
Okay.
didn't tell a lot of people, to be honest with you. I was very intentional about protecting my mental,
Hmm.
protecting my spirit when I left, because you do have those people who think you're absolutely nuts and insane for doing that. Even now, today, when a lot of people are doing it. And so I only told a trusted circle, group of people who I knew were going to support me, who I knew that they were going to pray over me. They were going to call me and say, Shaquanna, I don't know what you got going on there, but you got it. I needed that in my head as soon as, because it was a transition. It was a life transition. And I needed to make sure that I was safe and felt safe. Not to say that my parents would have done anything to not make me feel safe, but I just didn't want the worry. Our parents, they worry. I didn't want
Yeah.
the worry. I didn't want the fear projected on me. It wasn't until April, so about 6 months, that I told them. Because to me, that was like kind of my way of saying, see, it's been 6 months. I got it.
Hmm.
But I told them, and honestly, they were just like, oh, wow, you did it. Like, you've been talking about this for a very long time and you did it. And it honestly sparked some inspiration. Like, as soon as I told like my dad, he was like, well, let me talk to you about this business idea I got. Like, that's how it kind of shifted. And we started talking about business related things. And, they, of course, were asking questions. Well, what did you do about insurance? What did you do about your benefits? I have that all figured out, And so they were just like, you inspired me. They were like, this
That's
is amazing.
awesome.
Yeah. So, and one of my friends, she was like, just tell them, but I wasn't ready. I had to make sure
Yeah.
I was ready. And I love the support that I received after I told them and told the world about it, because I didn't publicly announce it like on social media or anything until around that time too.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I remember, what year was this? I don't know, probably 2010 or something. I told my dad, who was my inspiration to become an engineer, I told him I was going to save up $20,000 and I was going to quit my job. And he probably still cussing me out about that to this day. Because that was the craziest thing he had ever heard. He's like, you done been through all this education. You on track to make way more money than I ever did. You're not quitting anything. And so you brought up like your process of handling that. It was very smart, because you do have to protect it. And even like in your career, like when you're trying to make different moves, people are trying to, pivot different careers and do different things. It's like sometimes more opinions only really hinder what you already know to be true, right?
Exactly.
And it just slows you down. So I'm glad that you brought that up, because that kind of spans across a whole lot of different topics.
Yeah.
A lot of my clients, they come to me and they're really just looking for someone to tell them what to do or validate what they already know to be true. And it's like, I'm going to give you the good opinion. I'm going to, stand behind you and boost you up.
Right.
But I'm glad you brought that up, because a lot of people don't know how to handle all the opinions that fly at them.
Yeah.
And the school of Shaquanna says, do it and tell them later.
Sometimes you have to do that, no matter how close you are. Like, you have to put yourself first, especially with these big life decisions. So yeah, just do it and they'll find out later.
Yeah. So what are you reading or listening to, or what have you put in place to help you continue to elevate? Because although you're no longer in corporate, you still have a brand that you're elevating. You still have a business. And so whether people, they always try to put us in two separate buckets, career people and entrepreneurs. We're all really doing the same thing. We all have a brand. We're all trying to elevate. We're all trying to leave our mark somewhere. So what kind of resources do you have that, keep you going?
Yeah. So, for sure, I'm a podcast girl. I love all types of podcasts, and the things I listen to have kind of shifted a little bit, especially since I went full time and, just other like personal things I'm doing or trying to do. But for sure, when I was still working and I was trying to figure out what am I doing with my career, what am I doing with my business, my personal brand in general, I listened to Myleik Teele. I don't know if you know Myleik. I love.
We're friends in my head, okay?
Yes. I want her to bring her podcast back so bad. She changed the game for me, because I started listening to her when I first started my styling business and trying to figure all of that out. And she just everything. So for sure, her podcast. I listened to the Side Hustle Pro podcast for a while. She has very good content as well. Right now, I'm loving it's called From Trials to Triumphs, but it's the host is Ashley Blaine Featherson. She I don't know if you're familiar with the show Dear White People on Netflix.
Yes.
Yeah, she what was her, I forgot what her character name was, but she played in that, and she teamed up with OWN to do this podcast. And so she interviews a lot of people from Kelly Rowland all the way down to her mom and other friends, just talking about the things that they have had to endure in their life and how they overcame that. And in this season in my life, that's very important for me to listen to and to feed myself with, because that applies on business, career, personal life in general. So that's what I've been listening to so far. Of course, I've read lots of books in the past. One of the books that kind of changed me as well was this book called Dangerous Prayers, because we often pray for certain things, but we don't pray for the things that we need to be praying for. We all, whether it's career or whatever, or business, we all want that elevation, but we have to turn into that person who can handle that, because you don't want to go into something prematurely and you mishandle it, right? So having those, or praying, saying those prayers that's like, look, I want to get to this certain level, but God, do what you got to do to transform me to be that person. And that is not sexy. That is not pretty at all. It is hard, but it works in the long run. I'm so grateful that I didn't get anything prematurely. I'm so grateful that I didn't leave my job in 2016 when I thought I was going to leave, because I would have mishandled everything. I'm so grateful that it happened when it did. So that has been really, really life-changing for me too.
Same. I talk about on LinkedIn that I think I've shared that I have a real estate business as well. And once I bought a couple of properties, I was like, oh, I can quit, once the checks started coming in. And then it's like, here we are 4 years in, and like everything is falling apart. Not everything is falling apart, but like with real estate, things break. And so, you're right. Had I just quit then, I would have not been prepared for what is happening now. And I wouldn't have even had any of the resources to actually lean into this, to my coaching and all of that. So the story, the journey, it all happens for a reason. It happens exactly the way it's supposed to go.
Trust the process. That's kind of like my motto nowadays. It's the process. Like, you have to be so committed to the process, more committed to the process than you are to the outcome to really make it through.
Yeah. What was I about to say? The reason I started this podcast is because I went through my LinkedIn. I went through just, people that I knew. I came up with a list of people. I was like, I know some dope people, and people need to hear these stories. And I didn't really, it didn't dawn on me until I went through the list. I went through everybody's profile, and I came up with like 2 or 3 sentences of, why should I have this person on my podcast? I was literally blown away when I looked at that list. I was like, people need to hear these stories. People need to hear the story of someone who is in a booming career. They figure out it's not for them, and then they go figure out their lane, and they're fulfilled. And so, I mean, especially in tech, where it's supposed to be the top of the mountain, and you're not supposed to want for anything. So I love that you came today and you were able to share that, like, it wasn't the top of the mountain for me. And I was able to go find that. Where can my listeners follow you? Where can they learn more? Where can they support you and your brand?
Yeah, definitely. So LinkedIn, that's definitely where I have shifted to put more of my focus on as far as content and sharing a lot of my personal stories. And of course, I'm going to put in some style advice and all of that too. So LinkedIn, Shaquanna Chappelle on LinkedIn. Also, I'm on Instagram at Shaquanna Chappelle. You can go to my website, shaquannachappelle.com, to just learn more about me, learn more about my services, my packages. And that's also where you can grab a copy of Get Up and Get Dressed. So by going to shaquannachappelle.com, you can just click the menu option for books, and you can learn a lot more about the book, the contents, and the result that you'll get from reading it as well. So between LinkedIn, Instagram, and my website, that's where you will be able to have access to everything to stay connected. Also, while you're on my website, go ahead and subscribe to my newsletter as well, because I'm getting my email marketing back up and running this year. So I am sending out lots and lots of great content, exclusive content through there as well. So that's a great way to stay connected to me.
Thank you so much. We're going to grab all those links and make sure we have them all linked in the show notes and everything, so you guys can find her, follow her, and get all those good career gems. The career gems are for me. Get the styling gems from her. But just a quick side note, I have a photo shoot coming up, and I was like, I'm just going to call Shaquanna for real, because I was looking for outfits, and I was like, I don't have time for this. So y'all might see me styled by Shaquanna very soon.
Yes.
But I can't thank you enough for being a guest on today's podcast. You definitely made some smart career and money moves. I learned so much, and I can't wait for you to style me very soon.
I'm excited, girl. I'm excited because your pictures already are bombs. I'm like, yes, Jen.
Yes, thank you so much. So it was great chatting with you, and I'll see you around LinkedIn.
Yes, thank you.
All right.